watching the rise. And I wouldn't say I'm shocked cause I'm hardly surprised. This one's for the ride. This one's for who knew I'd make it, just needed some time. This one's for my wife. Could've left 1,000 times just so by my side.
Hey, what's up, everyone? My name is Randy Kaye, and I'm the host of the Caught Up podcast. Today we have Mike Smith from Cal Baptist University. Coach Smith is in his second stint as the Lancers skipper after stops at McNeese State and Ole Miss, where he led the Rebels to 4 NCAA tournament appearances and 2 super regionals. Mike, it's always great to see you. Thanks for taking the time to catch up.
Randy, always a pleasure. I love the conversations we have. But of course, definitely about softball and your players, but also about life and kind of the game and kind of what's going on and how we can make this sport better, how we can make an impact in these young female athletes' lives. So thanks for having me.
Yeah, no worries. I appreciate you. How are things? I know there's fires, elections, upcoming softball season. How's everything in your world?
Yeah, I mean it's good. The softball world's good. It's softball season.
Yeah.
We're into practice time now. We've had some pretty high winds out here. Of course, everybody knows what's happened out in LA with the fires, how devastating that's been. Just seeing images and talking with people that have been affected by it. I mean, what a nightmare those people are going through. But we've seen humanity too in all this. And people just lending a hand, helping out, whether it's financial, whether it's food, whether it's shelter, whether it's just things we take for granted, the soaps and the towels and toothpaste and toothbrushes. I mean, we're seeing humanity at its finest. Too bad we can't do that on a daily basis, right? Just lend a hand. But the devastation that we've seen has just been crazy. So
I've often heard that if you're in a fire, if you go through that situation, that you don't realize what you don't have until you need it. And then you go, wait a minute, I need this. And then wait a minute, that burned up in the fire. Or I didn't remember I had that. I need to get this. But I no longer have it. We were talking earlier and you mentioned one of the writers had written something about an article about the fires, about his house burning down. Can you elaborate on that a little bit?
Yeah. So I just read an article last week. Bill Pulaski, he's a sports writer for the LA Times, really well-known reporter. You've seen him on ESPN a lot of times too. And he was one of the individuals, families that was affected by the fires. His area, he lives in Altadena. And his house was not burned down, but pretty much everything around. I think he had a couple of neighbors in the area, and he wrote this article that basically, I'm kind of paraphrasing it all, but I remember him saying, "I've lost nothing, I've lost everything." What it kind of goes into is about kind of the guilt that he feels that his home is still standing. He got to keep all his personal stuff. And then there are his neighbors, people that are across the street, down the street, people that he saw every day when they're having conversations and, they're saying, how are you doing? He's like, well, I still have my house and the guilt that he has, but realistically, and people don't understand the process. Even though he still has his house, he really loses a lot of what he has in his house because with a fire, and I know this because it's happened to myself, is, you've got to tear your house down, especially inside when you got drywall, the smoke sets in. You're probably going to lose furniture just because of the smoke, and if anything got damaged by the fire. So, I mean, a lot of times you're going to have to tear that stuff down to the foundation. And so I think that, he's lost. He may never get to see his neighbors again. They may never go back there. So right. It's a great article. I know I'm kind of paraphrasing a little bit, but if anybody has an opportunity to go out there and read it, I know it's I've lost nothing, I've lost something. It's by Bill Pulaski for the LA Times. It's online. It's a tearjerker a little bit just because of, how he is feeling in all this. And there's images of his area and what he gets to see on a daily basis, or what he's seen since going back, and I can't even imagine, not just him and his area, but, the Pacific Palisades, of course, Altadena, the coast along 101. I mean, those homes that were right there on the cliffs are no longer anymore. And those were people would drive up the 101 just to see them, and now they're gone. So if you've never been there, I don't think you'll truly understand. But those of us that have kind of lived in Southern California, that have been up the coast, that have been in Altadena, that have been in the Palisades, that have driven through some of those communities, I can't even, multi-million-dollar homes. And there's some that people that didn't have that type of money that lost everything. So it's just, it's sad.
It's amazing to think like you could, even if you didn't have the smoke damage, if you were to get to go home, you lost your whole community. Like you said, your neighbor used to live next door to you, but that doesn't mean they're coming back. That doesn't mean, I know there's talk about insurance and there's talk about all these other things that go on. And, and even worse, right? To some degree, like there was some loss of life as well. So, prayers to everybody. That's a tough situation. Like you said, I can't imagine why we can't just like, I want to say get along, but like show that compassion that you mentioned, that there's, people supporting financially, I saw an article too, where there was a restaurant who like a day or two afterwards, like, hey, come down here. We're open. We'll feed anybody, so to me, that's the good part of humanity. We come together really well when stuff falls apart, unfortunately. Hopefully we can, hopefully everybody can get back to where they need to be. That's tough. Did you have anybody that was directly affected? Like, did you have any players or know anybody?
No, we didn't have anybody directly affected, no loss of their home or anything or loss of life, but we had a couple of players that were kind of on evacuation notices. They actually reached out to me during practices when this all went down and said, hey, coach, I may need to leave to help my family kind of transition to wherever they were going to go. So, thank the Lord that never had to happen to them. But still, that's got to be scary for yourself and your families, and seeing the images and knowing, man, that could happen to me and I could lose everything if things don't get out of the house. So I'm thankful that our players didn't get affected to that point, but I'm sure the devastation around their areas, if they were in an evacuation place, is pretty devastating too.
Yeah. Well, and unfortunately, everything else goes on, and we'll try to push through. But there's a season coming up for you. Let's talk a little bit about before we get into your season. I want to talk to you about your journey. Played baseball, coached some baseball. How'd you get into softball?
Yeah, it's kind of a funny, crazy story. So I was coaching baseball at Biola University. I was kind of in between summer baseball. I kind of had a summer off except for recruiting. So I was able to play a little bit of independent baseball, still professional baseball, after my MLB minor league career was kind of over. I still felt like, any young kid or younger person that's been in it feels like they have a chance to get back in. But I was playing in the summertime, and I was coaching. So I was coaching baseball at Biola University. They were an NAI program. I was pitching coach over there, and I was out watching one of our soccer team play one day, and I get a tap on my shoulder, and I turn around. It's our athletic director, Dave Holmquist, who's still there, by the way. He's been there forever. Guy kind of gave me my career, and because of where I'm at today, I thank him. But anyways. He tapped me on the shoulder and said, "Hey, Mike, can I talk to you? We have a club softball team here. Our conference has asked us if we would take our club team to. They wanted to start conference softball, and so would I be interested in doing it?" My first thought was, "Are you crazy? Like coaching 20 girls on a daily basis? There is no way." But I will tell you, the Lord works in crazy ways. When He wants you to do something, He makes it known. And that's exactly what He did. I felt like over the next 3 to 4 days, no matter what I did, what I said, what I saw, conversations, it was softball. There's some type of link to softball. And I'm like, all right, Lord, I know what you're trying to tell me. So, I made the transition to softball. That was about 26 years ago. And I've really never looked back. I had a couple of opportunities to get back into baseball, but I just love the game. I love the way the girls love to play the game. They're sponges. They're just willing to learn and get better. And man, have I seen some changes from when I started to where we are now in just the game of softball and the popularity, and now on television. I think softball is probably the number 2 sport, or the College World Series time. The NCAA tournament, I think, is like number 2 or number 3 on ESPN with most watch, which is pretty amazing. Next to, of course, the FCS playoffs and March Madness. So
Yeah.
I think we're right there. I think softball's 2 or 3. So that's pretty impressive that we're right up there, and we're going against the NBA playoffs when it gets to our postseason. So I just think where softball has started, where it's gotten to, thanks to ESPN and what they've been able to put on TV. I mean, I remember when I was part of the SEC network at Ole Miss. It was my first year at Ole Miss. That was the first year of the SEC network, and where it was then and all the new stuff that was going on, part of the ESPN family, to now where it's branched off to the SEC network, the ACC network, Big 10, Big 12, all these different networks. It's amazing, and it's great to be in the game of softball right now when it comes to just the viewership of everything.
Yeah. What would you say, keeping yourself in this game for so long, what has kept you in the game?
I think just the love for the game. I love the game of baseball. I played it. I think my wife teases me all the time. I retired 3 times from professional baseball. But I just love it. I love getting to go out to the field every day. I love the fast pace of the game. And from a coaching standpoint, like, you got to be on your toes. Like, you've got to, as you well know, you got to know your team. And you got to know exactly kind of what you want to do. You got to think 2-3 moves ahead, kind of the chess game. I think coaching really comes into play. I think the strategies are a lot different in softball and in baseball. Field is smaller, ball's bigger. But yeah, I just love the way it is. I tell our girls all the time, your skill set has to be so good. An infielder, in baseball, the field is so big. You can bobble a ball 2 times, a shortstop, and still throw somebody out. In softball, you bobble it once, good chance you're probably not getting that player out. Same thing in the outfield. You can bobble, maybe miss a ball out there, and the run's probably going to score anyways. In softball, you still have a shot, but you've got to be able to make that play. So you've got to be really fundamentally sound, and these young women really understand that. And I know the teams that I've coached, we talk about details every day, and I think that's really important piece as you move into it. These girls really want to get better. They want to learn. They want to be seen. They want people to see that, hey, man, they're just as good as their male counterparts. They're just as good as any other athletes that are out there. And I think that they're proving that with kind of where softball has come over the last 15, 20 years.
Oh, without a doubt. What when you say details, what details, like, give me something that you guys talk about. Like, what's one of the details?
Yeah, so we talk about softball IQ. Like, I think that's the one thing, and nothing against the travel ball side, but I just think the softball IQ is kind of really lost. I don't think it's taught as much. There's some organizations out there that do a really good job of doing it, but I just think a lot of the softball IQ has gone, like, not understanding why we don't throw to home when there's a runner at first base and second, and the ball's in the left center gap. Why are we trying to throw home when we don't have an opportunity? Let's throw the ball to second base. We're going to probably give up the run anyways, but we want to keep them from scoring in that situation. Picking a ball off the fence. Like, are we really going to throw somebody out, or do we need to throw to the next base because that runner now may take it if you're trying to throw to the next base or not hitting the cuts. Fundamentals. I think fundamentals kind of go unnoticed. Everybody's so wanting to hit, and we lose the focus of how important defense is. We have a phrase here that defense wins championships, and I think a lot of other coaches use that out there. But man, the championship we won in 2009 here, the success that I had at Ole Miss in super regionals, and winning the SEC tournament in 2017, like, details matter, man. Like, playing defense is a huge piece of our game, and defense is so fundamentals, and fundamentals are so detailed that you've got to know what's going on. I mean, knowing situations on bunt, even though I'm not having you hit in a situation or bunt in a, you've got to know what the situation is and be able to move those runners over to drive them in. Like, you're not just going up there and hitting to hit. You've got to hit in a situation. And I think a lot of younger players don't understand those nuances of the game, that when you get to the next level, that's something that we have to do a lot more teaching early on. And so it's not ingrained in these young ladies. So you got to talk to it and do it every day. Sometimes it becomes repetition and, the definition of insanity. But we just got to keep doing it and doing it like you're studying for a test and doing the same type of problems over. Eventually it'll click. And so I know they probably get tired of me saying it all the time. Details matter. Details matter. We got to do it this way. We got to do it this way. Ultimately, they're going to hear my voice and it's going to click, and it does. And when it does, it's an aha moment for us as coaches, but I think it's also an aha moment for them when they really do it and they see the success. They're like, oh, okay, that's what coach is talking about. So I think those are kind of the details that I think get lost a little bit.
For sure. And you kind of said it. I mean, you got to run her at second, and that kid's the leadoff batter, and you got a ball in the gap. You don't have a good angle. So you're going to a more of a cutoff angle, and then all of a sudden you're trying to go 4, and the girl's standing at second base. No, I totally get you there. It's funny too, because when you talk about the bigger field, so I do some drills, just kind of a warm-up drill where I have kids feel. I just roll balls, and I have them double shuffle to the throw, right? And there'd be 1 or 2 kids that go, they look at me and I go, I get it. You're not going to probably be able to double shuffle in a game in softball because field's too small, right? But like, I'm just working on getting good direction and get you moving in that direction. And number 2, especially for some of the like beginner kids or like newer kids I'm trying to take a look at, I just want to see if you can do it. Like, cause not every kid's that athletic or feels that. What is your focus? Like, as far as you as a coach, what would you say your specialty is, or what do you focus on in terms of coaching your team? Is there one specific area, or do you manage the whole team?
Yeah, I think, man, boy, that question, if you asked me that, 10 years ago, I think it would be different. I think now I'm the jack of all trades, master of none. And that's kind of a funny thing, because I think I do. Yeah, I think I do know a lot about, I was a pitcher in professional baseball, but pitching in baseball is so different than pitching in softball. So I leave that to the professionals and what they do. I think I could do a good job of calling a game, but the finesses of the game, I think, are different just because I've done it before. But, what I do here at CBU is I'm the infield coach. And I was that before when I was here. But then when I left and I went to McNeese and then to Ole Miss, I had great assistants, and their forte was infield. And so I moved to the outfield, which was great, which kind of got me. And that's kind of what I played a little bit more in high school. So I knew that a lot more. So that's why I kind of say I'm the jack of all trades, because I can kind of do it all. Of course, I did the hitting for a while. We just hired a new coach this year, Cheyenne Smith. She was a volunteer coach for me when I first got here. She went to Cal State San Bernardino for a couple of years after being a volunteer for us. And now we brought her back. And I've kind of given her a lot of autonomy and leeway with the hitting, which has freed me up, like you said, to kind of be the field manager and kind of get to be invested in everything and every in everything that's on there. Very similar to what I was able to do finally at Ole Miss when I had a staff where I didn't have to worry about kind of looking over somebody's shoulders. I trust them in what they're doing, and I think that's kind of where we're at fully now with our entire staff. Is I can kind of just leave them to what they're doing, make suggestions, and kind of get to facilitate now, and I love it.
Yeah. Is there anybody that you enjoy coaching against or look forward to coaching against in terms of another coach or program?
Boy, man, there's so many great ones out there. I've got good relationships with, Pat Murphy, and I love coaching against Pat. I'm going to go, I don't want to name drop, but being in the SEC, Tim Walton is unbelievable. I've only got to coach against Patty Gasso one time when I was at Ole Miss in the postseason. So I've been able to coach against her. We play them this year. We hope that's our first day of the season, our second game of the year. We play Oklahoma. So to be the best, you got to play and coach against the best. And I feel like those type of coaches make me better in what I'm trying to do. And I try to use them to my advantage, get as much information as I can. Shannon, over at Grand Canyon, kind of in your backyard, Shannon and I have coached against each other when he was at Lubbock Christian. When I was here at CBU before, he went to Texas Tech, and now we're kind of back coaching, and that's kind of our arch rival, our nemesis, and they're leaving the conference after this year. But just any of these great, anybody in our conference, anybody across the, there's a reason why these coaches are at Division I, because they're talented and they get their teams ready to play. So yeah, I love coaching against all of them. And I think there's some great ones out there. It was great coaching against Mike Candrea when he was in the game. Beth Terena. Those are some ones that I got to coach against quite a bit. Then there's some great ones that are, in the NAIA that are now Division II coaches. Crystal down at Concordia University, who's Division II, she's now the AD. Crystal Rosenthal down there, she's the AD and the head coach. And I've known her for a long time. In fact, we talk about this all the time, that I was coaching when she was a player at Concordia, and now she's coaching. And man, she is just a gamer. She's a bulldog. She's now on the administrative side of things, but we have great conversations about the game of life after softball. And, I hope that I was a mentor to her, and I've learned a lot from her as well. So I think older coaches can learn a lot from the younger coaches and the younger generation, because times have changed. And if you don't change with the times as a coach, I think you get lost, kind of get stagnant. And there's some things that I still do as an old school coach that I kind of get stubborn and I don't want to change from. But there's some things that I'm very black and white. Like, I'm very transparent. I'm not a sing kumbaya and roast marshmallows type of guy. Like, I believe in letting players know where they're at, transparency. And in today's society, a lot of people don't want that. It's a little bit different. And I think you can do it in the right way. I think sometimes young athletes take the tone and not the content. And so as a coach now, you got to figure out, okay, maybe the tone that I used before is not the right way to use it now. You have to find a better way to do it. So you just have to be able to, mature. But I think that's the biggest thing. Like, we have pillars here: structure, discipline, accountability. My dad was in the military. I grew up kind of a Navy kid for a little while, and then he got into the civil service, but he started working with the Navy SEALs. And so I got to be around the Navy SEALs for a number of years growing up, and being around my dad and spending time down in San Diego. His office was right next to the Navy SEALs facility. So we used to go out on my dad's kind of back beach area and watch them train out there, and got a chance to talk to a lot of them. A lot of the commanders, got the chance to see a lot of the new recruits, heard a lot of bells ringing for guys that couldn't handle it anymore. And so I'm just intrigued by what the Navy SEALs are about, what they stand for. And it's about structure, discipline, accountability. And if you don't have those three things, no matter what team concept you're in, you're not going to see the success at any level. And so I've taken those three things and tried to incorporate that, not just in what I do as a coach, but also what I do as a father, what I do as a leader, and what I do in life. And I think without those, one goes with the other. And I think those are really important in the sports realm.
Yeah, transparency. Everybody says they want transparency. Everybody says they want coaches that will tell them the truth, until you do, or until it's not what they want to hear, or until they disagree.
100%.
I'll tell you right now, I think that is and I just talked about this with somebody else. I think that's one of my faults as a coach, is my transparency and directness. And I try really hard to be soft with it, like compassionate. But if you're not doing your job, you're not doing your job. Or if you're, not putting in the work, you're not putting in the work. There's no really other way to say it. And so, I agree with that. And I was going to ask you too, do you really think that the athletes have changed? Because I hear it all the time. You hear it all the time. Oh, it's different. You can't coach this way or that way. How true do you think that is?
I think you're a product of your environment. I think a lot of it has to do with maybe the travel ball teams or the high school teams that you played in and the coaches that you played under, maybe how you grew up, maybe the the city, the society, your family's back. I mean, I think there's so many factors that account for how somebody has grown up. Again, I grew up in like, look, you were going to do this, you're going to be home at this time, and if you didn't, there was a consequence. Mm-hmm. We call them learning opportunities here. We don't call them consequences. We call them learning opportunities because truly they really are. They are learning opportunities. Yeah. If a learning opportunity means that you got to get on the line, you got to, give me 5 or 10 sprints. Well, you're going to learn from that. So it's a learning opportunity. So anyways, I just think you're a product of your environment. I think society is different now. I think more things have been kind of brushed under the rug. I think social media has changed a lot of things. I think people are afraid to be a little bit more demanding. And so kids don't know what that is. I think there's so many different factors in the world that have changed a lot of kind of where we're at. So yeah, I would agree with that. I don't think athletes have changed because I still think they have the same mindset. I just think society has changed and how we grow up and the things that we believe in, whether they're family values, whether they're travel ball values, whether they're high school values, whether they're the people that you hang out with, you're a product of your society and where you're at. Yeah. And I think that kind of affects a lot of what you do moving forward.
Yeah. I remember a guy telling me a long time ago, show me who you spend your time with and I'll tell you what you are.
Correct. 100%.
And I remembered that. I probably didn't put it all together until later in life, but definitely could see what he was trying to tell me at that point in my life. Let's talk about the upcoming season. You mentioned a doubleheader in February. I think it's the 7th, right?
Correct.
February 7th.
Correct.
You have looks like you have
we play Southern. We open up with out of Louisiana, and then of course Oklahoma, 4-time.
Yep.
4-time back-to-back national champion. So
Southern University and Oklahoma. Tell me about that day. What's that going to look like for you?
Well, I mean, I think our preparation is for Southern, of course. We don't want to look ahead of them.
Right.
But in the back of our heads is always Oklahoma. That's what's on their chest. That's the color. That's kind of that's the marquee. That's the team that everybody is looking up to. They're the target. And, playing that game, I think is going to be great for our friends, our families, our players. But we can't make the game any bigger than it is. We just have to go out there and compete. Hopefully the players do the things that we ask them to do. I think our coaches are going to be ready with scouting reports. I think we're going to have our team prepared. That's what we're trying to do right now. But we're going to take it one day at a time. We're going to go and roll with Southern and then compete against Oklahoma. I think Oklahoma is their first game. They play actually, I think, the day before. But we will be their first game of the day. I think they play maybe Cal State Fullerton right after that. But that's kind of what we're preparing for. I mean, they're defending, 4-time national champ. They're a different ball club now. They lost a lot of key players, but Oklahoma's they reload. They're just not getting, they're getting new players, but it's a reloading. They do a great job with the transfer portal. They do a great job with bringing in the top freshmen, maybe the top JUCO kids. So, Coach Gasso does it right out there. The Gasso family, they got the great facility out there in Love Stadium. And, they're the brand that everybody's trying to roll after and go to, similar to what Alabama football was when Nick was there.
Right. I mean, in the spring, you spend a lot of time trying to prepare, against yourselves, right? You spend a lot of time inter squatting or, facing your pitchers or however, whatever it is that you do in your program. But now you get to kind of go see, a couple of games, and then one of them just happens to be against, like you said, the 4-time defending national champs. So it's going to be a good, I don't want to say gauge, but just to see where you're at, see how it stacks up, see how the kids perform under that pressure playing against, that talent. And I mean, it seems like it's going to be, a really good day for you guys as far as that goes. Who are you expecting to tell me about your team. Who's returning? Do you have any additions? Did you have anyone leave that you're going to miss? Tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah, we got hit by the transfer portal and the NIL stuff. So we lost our number one pitcher from last year and our number one hitter. Unfortunately, that happens when you're a mid-major.
We talked about it, right? We talked about it at Nationals about being a team that, I forget. I think you even said, you had mentioned something about we're kind of all feeders now to whatever.
Yeah, I feel like sometimes the mid-majors get to be the minor leagues for the for the Power Fours, and that's comedy. But unfortunately, if you look over the last few years, a lot of the mid-majors, and it's not just in softball. I just think it's across the country. I mean, look at football, but I just think nowadays with the money that's out there, not so much as big in softball, but just in college sports. I mean, I think that dynamic has changed. Maybe the athletes have changed because now, and again, this is my personal opinion. I think the loyalty and it is not there as much anymore. It's about kind of, the almighty dollar sometimes. And where can I kind of get my best? It's hard to build a program and sustain. You just hope that you get the right kids in here that want to be here. The kids that left are the ones that, to be honest with you, I never thought would leave our program. But it is what it is. I mean, we're moving forward. And so, that happens, and we have to find a way to take the next step, and hopefully somebody's going to be able to have to fill their shoes. And I think we've got a good, talented team of players to be able to do that. I think we returned Morgan McConnell in the circle. She was one of our other top pitchers from last year. So we returned her. I returned Kate Penberthy, who was a freshman last year, who had a great freshman campaign at third base. I returned Malachi Russell Millen. She played second base for us. She was our number 9 hitter. She was great. Her on-base percentage was crazy. She would roll our lineup around. Priscilla, of course, Priscilla's been a 3-year starter for us. Will probably start at shortstop for us. Has been kind of a mainstay, a team leader at shortstop. Kalena Burns, who was a transfer for us from the University of Iowa, big power hitter. She'll probably play some first base and DP. Sydney Soto, who's been a 3-time starter for us in the outfield as well, our number 2 hitter. Great defensive outfielder, great player, just comes to compete every day. So she's kind of going to start. And then we have Val, kind of our catcher, who spent a lot of time behind the plate. So those kind of our veteran players that are probably back. Maddie Severance is back this year as well. She played a little bit to start the year in the outfield. She kind of got hurt and didn't play as much towards the back end, but she's had a really good fall, and now the first 2 or 3 weeks into the spring. So we want to kind of keep her healthy. We have a freshman coming in, or a freshman that's here, Stevie Robinson from Las Vegas, who could potentially start in the outfield for us. Lexi Lopez, who is a kind of a big recruit for us, middle infielder. She could play any of the infield positions. Her sister is Mariah Lopez, who's our pitching coach that pitched at Oklahoma and at Arizona. So we've kind of have a sister tandem, not as players, but a player coach, which is great. It's a great dynamic that we have. And and then we've got a good freshman pitcher coming in, Annika Hollingsworth from Washington, who I think is going to be she's a big future pitcher, I think, current as well as a future pitcher for us. So I think we've got a pretty good group, that are just going to give us some quality innings in the circle, but also going to give us some great at bats. And I think defensively we're going to be pretty good. I think we're going to swing the bats. The circle is a little bit of a question mark, just because truly we have one returner. Our other freshman that we brought in last year, she had an injury last year that kept her out for most of the year. So really she's a freshman, and we have a true freshman coming in, and then we have a transfer that came in from a Division II school. So really it's kind of a new pitching staff. Don't know what to expect there. So that's kind of our question mark, but I feel like we're going to swing the bats. We're going to play some good defense. And we'll just kind of roll with it and see what's happened there. But I'm excited about where we're going. I think we've got a great schedule. I think we play 3 or 4 teams that were in the College World Series last year. We play Florida We play Arizona State. We go to Stanford and play them twice. I think we're hosting UCLA here in Riverside. So looking forward to that. I think that's going to be great for our community here. So I appreciate UCLA being able to come out here and be part of kind of our community for a day. So that'll be great for our program to have UCLA, kind of the history program of college softball out here. And so I think we've got a pretty good, probably the toughest schedule that I've put together since I've been here.
Yeah. Well, and it sounds like there's opportunity in the circle, right? A little bit unknown, like you said.
Yep.
So to me, that just screams opportunity for the kid that wants to jump out there and get an opportunity. But how about leadership? Do you feel like you've got your leadership in place and you got good chemistry?
We do. We have a great leadership team. Priscilla Estrada, our shortstop, Morgan McConnell, Kate Penberthy, who's a sophomore for us, Ashley Annette, who's another one that I didn't mention as far as players. She's a kind of first baseman. She'll kind of be there. She's probably had one of the best, if not the best falls of any of our players. She's been here for the last 2 years. This is her third year, and she's kind of been in and out of the lineup at first base. But man, she's had a great fall and into the spring, and she's a great team leader. So she's part of our leadership team. And I think I said Kalena, Morgan McConnell, Priscilla, and Kate. So we've got a good group that are kind of our leaders. Some younger ones that I think are going to help us out a little bit to kind of carry on that tradition moving forward. You don't know what leaders you lose until they're gone and they're not here anymore, and kind of take them for granted. So it's trying to develop those new leaders. Our older ones are trying to mentor our younger ones. And so that's, I think, an important piece when you do have a leadership team, not to help you and kind of help that team chemistry and that culture, but to also kind of help you mentor and kind of bring up some of the new leaders as well and kind of make an impact on them.
What about speed? Are you guys a fast team? Do you everyone loves speed, right? Is that something that you focus on?
Yeah, definitely. I want to be well balanced. I think we're faster this year than we have been. We've got some younger players that we brought in that can run a little bit. I think in our potential starting lineup, I think we've got a little bit more speed than we had last year. So I think we're gonna run a little bit. I'm an action coach, so I love to move around. I love put people in motion. I just think the more chaos that you can create on the bases just puts a lot of pressure on the defense. We create a lot of controlled chaos at practice. So I like that we do that, because then that gets us ready for another team very similar to us. I always tell the girls, if I create controlled chaos and it's hard to compete at practice, the games will be much easier. So I think that's an important piece. Yeah, definitely.
Are those, when you talk about creating chaos, I'm assuming you mean offensively, do you still feel that there's a lot of opportunity still for the lefty slapper? Is that something that you utilize, or is it more of, kids that hit and can run?
Yeah, I'm more big on the tooled slapper. So I really truly, and I've told this to our slappers coming in. I said, look, I love the way you handle the bat, but you can't just slap and expect to have success at our level. Like, you have to soft slap. You have to be able to high hop. You got to be able to, power slap. You got to be able to swing away. The more tools that you have in your belt, the better off you're easily to defend. Like, the shortstops at the Division I level are really good. The third basemen have great range. So you trying to drop a ball in the 5-6. In travel ball, it's kind of my biggest thing that I watch in travel ball is a lot of these left fielders, when slappers come up, they play the same spot as they do for a lefty hitter, and they don't play up on a lot of these slappers. So that's the one thing that we try to get our young freshmen to understand is you have to know who's coming up and what they do well. Does this slapper drive the ball to the left center gap if they do power slap, or is their power to the right side? So if that's the case, then you play up a little bit more, or now you got to play back a little bit more and make them hit the ball. If they hit the ball over your head, tip your cap to them, and now you play back a little bit more. So until they beat you, I think you play the percentages, you play the scouting reports, you play the hot zones, and then if they beat you, then you make those changes from there. But analytics is so big in our game. So I think that the more that you use those, at least as a baseline, the better off you're going to be able to see success from a defensive standpoint. But yeah, I mean, we like to use slappers. I like them to be more 5-tooled if we can. When my most successful team that I had that was balanced across the board was my 17 team at Ole Miss. And I mean, I had slappers 1, 2, 7, 8 in my lineup. So in fact, we won our 2019 Super Regional against University of Lafayette. My number 7 in the lineup slapper was the one that had the game-winning RBI. We had bases loaded. I think we had bases loaded, and we power slapped her in, and we had speed at third, and that's exactly what happened. So I really think that that's kind of a big thing moving forward as well.
Is that something you dictate to your slappers, like hit away versus slap in a situation like that? Because I literally just came into that situation this past weekend with like a couple minutes left in the game. I had runners at second and third, and my slapper came up, and she asked me, should I hit away? And I'm like, no, because I felt like she was more she had better barrel control than she was farther along slapping than hitting. She's young, she's a sophomore. And is that something that you dictate to your players? Either slap or hit away in situations?
Yeah, so there's times when I will give them something to do. We have signs for soft slap or drag bunt, but a lot of times I give them the autonomy. If I'm doing my part as a coach early on in the fall and into the spring, I know what they can do in what situations, and they know what they can do.
Yeah.
So I try to give them the autonomy, especially at the collegiate level. They should be smart athletes enough that they know what they do best. And sometimes you have to kind of pull the reins in because they think that they can do a little bit too much. And I'll ask them, like, okay, why did you do this? If you can give me a good answer, then I'm okay with you succeeding or failing there. But if you can't give me a good answer on why you did it, you just did it to do it, well, then we may have other conversations. But I give our slappers the autonomy to kind of do that. They know, hey, we get runners in these situations. Hey, maybe I want you to swing the bat more than I want you to. And they know what they do well. Some of our slappers aren't great swingers, but they're better power slappers. Power slap that situation. If some of them can power slap and swing, I don't know, maybe try to power slap your first at bat, maybe draw them in a little bit, and then stand in there and swing. So sometimes these slappers, they know their own limits and what they can do, and but that just makes you a better athlete and a better ball player.
For sure. Mike, when I reached out to you too, I really wanted to talk to you about something that I've noticed huge in athletics, in college athletics, over the past few years. I mean, prior to, me noticing, I mean, I always remember guys like Kurt Warner and AC Green, Tim Tebow, really kind of displaying their faith. And it seems like, Oklahoma, the Sooners obviously have been center stage with their faith. One of our former players, Grace Lyons, she runs a thing called Battle 1017, and I believe it stands for Boast About the Lord. I just see it so much nowadays in sports, and I used to feel, because I didn't really grow up. I grew up and was baptized early on and received my first communion and things like that. But like in high school and things like that, I wasn't a religious, or I didn't show that. It wasn't really ingrained in me as much. But I used to kind of feel it was fake. And I hate saying that, knowing what I know now, but I would love to know your thoughts on why is it so much now players are really just displaying their faith. And I know you as well post a lot of Bible verses, and it's so funny, man. Like, I'll read one up from you that I actually needed that day. Like, it was something that I go, man, like, okay. And to your point earlier, God, when He has a plan for everybody, and we're going to do what we're supposed to do. And I want to give you this quick story, and I'll ask you a question. Sorry to run on.
No, you're good.
I was at Nationals a couple years ago in Colorado, and there was a situation where I absolutely needed to move a kid off a team because of many reasons. It wasn't good for her. It wasn't a good situation in terms of just, just some dynamics. And I was in my hotel room and I was praying. I was like, God, just like, I need to do this. I don't know what to do. I got to go tell this parent that I want to move them off of a team. And I got to, have a good reason from one to another. And I said, just show me, what should I be doing right now? Just give me something. And for some reason I said, you know what? I grabbed my iPad, I went and sat in my truck, and I was going to go for a drive, right? And make that phone call. And as I'm sitting outside in my truck, that parent that I needed to talk to walks out the door. And I was just like, I'm here. I see you. I'm good. And just drove over, had that conversation. But I 100% agree with you. I put a lot of faith in what I'm doing. I try to do things for the right reasons, but it's been so much lately that people are doing that. What are your thoughts on why are so many people nowadays putting their faith out there for everyone to see?
Well, I mean, I think faith in sports is really important. It's kind of the idea that you're going to integrate your faith into whatever sport you're playing, which kind of leads to a greater life satisfaction, maybe a stronger sense of purpose. So I think it's a way to glorify God through what you're doing. Like, the Lord has blessed you with the talents and the abilities. So why not glorify him through that? And I think that's probably the biggest thing for us, especially here at CBU. Like, we're committed to the Great Commission here, like, go out, to preach the gospel. And we're going to do that here as an athlete. We pray with our team and the visitors after every one of our games. Yep. So I think that's kind of something that we do that some schools may not do. And we just do that to thank God for keeping us safe and to giving us the abilities that he's given us. But I think we play for an audience of one. Mm-hmm. So I think if that's to bring out the best in themselves and their opponents, and it's becoming something better. So the audience of one is, we want to play for Christ and what they are trying to do, and they want to play for themselves to make themselves better, both as an athlete as well as, whatever religious affiliation they are in. But I think that's really important. I think it develops team cohesion too, like team culture, like having Christ centered, like you all are believing in a lot of the same things. I think that's really important for your culture. And it helps them navigate between the balance of being competitive and being humble too. Because I think this is a game that will humble you very quickly. It'll bring you the thrill of victory, but yet the agony of defeat. So I think that they can integrate their faith into sports. And like I said, for greater life satisfaction, I think it builds team cohesion. I think it helps them with difficulties and stressful situations, knowing that, Christ is there, that he has their back. And to have coaches that feel the same way, like here at CBU, all our all our employees here are all faith-based. So I think that they're going to get faith-based education. They're going to get a faith-based, if they're working in a certain area, from their coaches. I think that's really important, that they have the ability to be free, to speak their mind, to pray. Like, I've been at some public institutions where, praying was something that we had to take ourselves away from. Players that played for me knew that I was a Christian in my background. And we had some players that prayed, but I couldn't invest myself in that sometimes because I had to separate myself from the church and state. And so we had to leave that for the players and let them do it. And if I wanted to pray with them, we couldn't force players to do that, so they could leave. And so here at CBU, I think it's just something that's a given. And not every player here, not every athlete here is a Christian, but they're going to get everything that they do here is going to be faith-based. And we're going to try to teach life skills through the game of softball that they can take on in the secular world, in the faith-based world, to make them better people, better moms, better wives, and be ambassadors for not just not just their families, not just their institution, but just for their lives and who they represent. And I think that's really important, really for any athlete. And I look up, I look up to a lot of those athletes that are not afraid to speak their mind. Like they put themselves out there, and society ridicules them.
Yeah.
Society puts them down. You're a Bible thumper. You're a Jesus believer. It's like a negative. And
Right.
when you can stand out and know what is important, I think that's golden for these athletes that aren't afraid to stand out. And I think a lot of our athletes are not afraid to put their faith out there. And I think that is something that sometimes is not sometimes is remarkable, that they're willing to step out in faith. And who cares what society thinks? Who cares what their friends think? Who cares maybe even what their family thinks? Because their families may not be believers. And
Right.
That's somebody that's matured in what they're doing and in their faith.
I mean, you see it it's all over now. I mean, not only in sports, but even in the world of politics now. To me, it's out there, and it just feels good. And where did that come from in you? Was it something you were brought up with?
Yes, yeah. I grew up in the Baptist church. From day one. In fact, we lived like 3 blocks from our church, so we used to walk to church every Sunday. My mom was involved; she was the nursery coordinator, so she was involved in the little kids ministry. My dad was the sports director, so I learned sports through faith because my dad was part of that. He preached that. Part of his rec league at the church was that the kids that were part of it had to come to Wednesday night Bible studies at the church, and that they would be part of a halftime devotion. And the coaches that coached had to be faith-based, and they would be the ones to give the devotion. So I grew up around that. My family was involved. I went to Christian camps. So, but as any young kid, sometimes you test your faith a little bit and you kind of shy away. And I think it's like that with every young kid. You get bogged down with going to church all the time, and you have your friends that maybe aren't, that are doing these things, and you want to be a part of that. But I always knew in the back of my head that what was right and what was wrong. And my parents held me accountable. Again, going back to kind of what I said, structure, discipline, accountability. If it wasn't for how I grew up, I think my path could have steered a different direction. But I always knew what was right and what was wrong from a faith-based background. And, that angel on your shoulder telling you, yep, this is the way to do it. And the devil is over here telling you one thing, and they were fighting back and forth, but you always knew which one was had the better punch and could knock the devil out. So I know it's kind of a funny little analogy, but no, it's having that faith-based, I think, is huge for me. And just having a personal relationship with Christ, I think, has been really why I'm here. And I know that the Lord has led me to every stop that I've had in this game coaching, as well as in baseball. He led me to my wife and our kids have grown up in a faith-based. And so I just think that everything that I've done and led up to has prepared me for something else. It's kind of funny. When I was coaching at the NAI level, I always wanted to coach. Like I always said, getting in the game, that I wanted to coach the best and wanted to be with the best, as I did as a player, professional player. And, I would try to get jobs, and I would be a finalist for a job, but would never get it. But I look back now going, the Lord had a plan, and he knew when the right time for me to go was, and he gave that to me. And man, the things I learned after I left Biola and went to UCR and was only at UCR for a year, and then came to CBU for 8 years, and the success and the drive and the things that I was able to accomplish here prepared me for getting to McNeese, into the secular world, and being part of that. And the things I learned in the South and the things I dealt with there prepared me to get to the SEC. And the things I learned there and how I left there had prepared me for something else. So I think that's just a God thing. I think that the God prepares you for everything in life something that maybe just devastates you early on, you got to keep the faith and know, man, that he's got something out there for you. He may have you down and knocked you down for a long period of time. It may be something that's short, a day, a week, a month, maybe even a year, maybe 2 years, maybe kept you in poverty for a lot of times, but there's something more. You just got to keep the faith. Keep riding the wave. Last year we had a phrase, kiss the wave. And, part of it was the Lord was going to throw things at you and you were going to crash against the rocks, but you had to be able to stay on that wave and know that eventually God was going to take you to the shore. And I think that analogy of kissing the wave and knowing that that wave may get knocked out on the rocks of adversity, the rocks of trials and tribulations may knock you back out. You may go deep back into the ocean, but that wave's going to find a way to take you in eventually, to give you the smooth. I mean, what's the sand? The sand is smooth. It's nice. It's comfortable. And people love dipping their toes in it. So I just think it's kind of a cool little analogy. It's just to kiss the waves that the Lord gives you, that some are going to be good. Some are going to be bad. Some are going to be great. And you're going to get thrown back out there and you're going to come back in again. So I just think that there's so many things that the Lord teaches you throughout your life. And hopefully you've, that when you stand in front of the Lord at the gates and he says, well done, my good and faithful servant. I think that's the ultimate. And that's what I look forward to, when the Lord decides me to take me home.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I agree with all of that. It's funny how even for myself to be where I'm at, I know for sure that there's a plan. I know that I wouldn't be here without the Lord giving my wife the strength to grow me up a little bit as we've both matured through life, and I'm really happy with what he's done with my family and the opportunities that he's given my family. And it's funny, man, because we were at church the other day, and because that's the one thing I don't know if I mentioned, but my wife, if I'm off on a Saturday, or because usually it's Saturday night, my kids go,
right.
But she's like, if you're off on Saturday night, we got to go to church. And so I'm at church the other night, and I believe I'm a Christian. I'd like to think my whole life I've been God-fearing, although, like you said, I tested many waters. I'm imperfect like everybody else, but man, I haven't been able to get my hand up at church yet. When they're asking you to bring your hands up, but I'm getting there. But I appreciate you coming on and talking about this with me. It's been really good. I was looking forward to this part, man, because I think it's a good thing out there, and I really love where society is going in terms of faith and athletes and people showing their faith. It's huge. Anything else you want to put out there before we go?
No, I mean, I just appreciate being on. It's always a pleasure talking with you and getting a chance to go watch your teams. I know they're going to be very well coached. You and I are very similar in how we coach and the transparency and the things that we believe in. So I always know that, players that have played with you, that have played for you, even though that may have gone to another organization, that they've been battle tested, they've been prepped to play the right way. So I appreciate that about you and what you give to the younger generation. Because of you, we're getting great individuals, not just great softball players, but great human beings. So thank you, Randy, for what you do for our sport. And it doesn't go unnoticed. And so I just want to publicly thank you for that. Like, you're an impressive individual, and I love our conversations, both spiritually and softball and personally. And, you're somebody that I appreciate, and thanks for what you do for our sport and just for softball in general.
Well, I appreciate that. Again, likewise, I appreciate our conversations. I look forward to them. Every time I see you at the field, we don't even talk that much softball. We talk about a lot of other things. So I love that about us. But all right, I just want to say thanks for listening. We will continue working to elevate the sport and get caught up with those who are influential in the fast pitch community. And hopefully we can help you navigate your softball journey. If you enjoyed this content, please like and subscribe to our YouTube channel, Caught Up with Randy Kaye, or at Coach KAZ. You can listen to the audio version of this podcast on Google, Apple, Spotify, or wherever you consume your favorite content. Please follow us on X and Instagram using the same handles at Coach KAZ. Mike, thanks again. Have a great day, man. I appreciate it.
Randy, thanks a lot. Lance up, everybody. Lance up.
Lance up.
This one's for my wife. Could have left 1,000 times just about my side.